The CEO is a very unique animal. I'm Alex Gertzberg, and this is CEO Confidential, where we learn about this rare breed, one heartbreak, one victory, one story at a time. This show is sponsored by the law firm of Gertzberg Licata, your ally for business growth. Folks, Randy Carver, President and CEO at Carver Financial Services. Randy, thanks for being here. Randy, you've always been an entrepreneur. And if I can read from my bio for a second, because it's interesting. As a teenager, Randy started and ran several successful businesses, including a catering firm and 2 home renovation companies. He attended Oberlin College, where he earned his degree in economics. After graduating, Randy opened a branch office for a regional brokerage firm in Mentor, Ohio. The office became one of the company's most successful offices within 3 years. Sensing a need in the market to provide clients unbiased investment information and a wide range of financial products and services through an international firm, Randy founded Carver Financial Services, Inc. Randy, you've got over 30 years in the business, yeah?
A lot of years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
But I started young.
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, it adds up. 30 years is a lot of time. And I know you know your stuff. So Randy, with all of that as background, tell me about your journey. Tell me about the time when you realized that the business wasn't about just Randy Carver.
Yeah, that's a good question, because I think most people, financial services business tend to be pretty egocentric, type A people. My company was founded because at the time, the financial service business focused on transactions. And really, what I saw was a need for more of a service-based business. In the case of us, investments really are irrelevant. They're a means to an end. And so when someone hires us, they're not really hiring us for financial planning or buying and selling investments. They're hiring us to pay for retirement, college, a boat, a trip, etc. But at some point, as a business grows, there's always so many hours in the day. So typically, whether it's financial services or other types of businesses, what you see is, in the beginning, it's just the founder and maybe an assistant or 2. And so they're driving everything. They're the point of contact. They're the focus. I think the second phase, if you want to get better and if you want to grow, is you need to start to delegate some of the things you're doing. If you read or follow a strategic coach or some of those things, they're saying, look at what your strengths are and delegate everything else.
Right.
And that's great to a point, but you're still the leader and you're still really involved in everything. And frankly, if you're in a service business and clients are coming to you, again, there's only so much Alex. There's only so many hours in a day. So I think the third and most important phase is transitioning from a me business to a team business. And so for us, we were sitting in a meeting, we realized we had this team of 11 people, but clients are still focused on Randy, not on Carver Financial. So we really spent several years rebranding, remarketing, redirecting. So clients were dealing with Carver Financial Services, not Randy Carver.
So I'm going to ironically interrupt here, but I want to make sure we get the timeline straight. So the business was formed or founded in around what year?
1990.
Okay. So from 1990 until some point in time, you're in that phase 1 building the business. It's all about Randy Carver. Give me that time period.
Yeah. I think, really the first 15, 20 years, quite frankly, so maybe 10 years ago, once we got bigger, from the get-go, we had 2 employees and then 3 and 4 and 5 and 6.
So how do you, so how do you go from phase 1 to phase 2? What's that transition like and what triggered that for you?
Well, what triggered just that we were growing. Just weren't enough hours in the day. But the phase 2 people, for the most part, it was more administrative versus doing the work of the business. Whereas, as we got to 2013, we were up to about 15 employees. Here's an example. And so 2001, we had 11 people. We managed about $290 million. 2013, 15 people, 800 million. So more than 3 times the assets. Staff only goes up by a couple people.
Right.
So you can see the efficiency kind of adding. But really it was right around 2013 or so, we said, we need to start delegating some of the leadership that phase 3, as far as that goes.
Right. So phase 1, you're building the business, and you're just, you're thinking about accumulating clients and you're building infrastructure. Phase 2 is really team focused. Right.
Correct.
Now you're adding bodies, right?
Right.
Phase 3 is all about this concept of servant leadership.
Exactly.
Right? You're turning your employees into leaders, right? And I guess it's at that point that Randy Carver really goes back into the background. Yeah.
Ideally.
Yeah.
And with any business, it's ironic. If you make yourself less important, your business actually becomes more valuable. To a third party. But also, you can then expand on a limitless basis because it's not all Alex in that case.
Well, and look, Randy, the reality is, and I can only speak for myself and other entrepreneurs I know, but you weigh in if this is true of you. We all have some egos to deal with.
Of course.
Right?
And it's hard to get away from. There actually is a me and team.
Right.
It's no I and team. No, but there's a me. So,
talk about, there's the journey of the business, but talk about the journey of your ego through this process.
Yeah. It's hard to get your head around, again, whether it's the marketing, the branding, or the business. Say, I built it, it's me. But the fact is you don't get from kind of stage 2 to stage 3, the good to great, without other people helping. You just can't. So you have to recognize that. Now, that brings up 2 really important points. It's not just hiring people. You got to get the right people. And not only do you have to get the right people, you have to have them in the right seats on the bus. So like I say, you got to get the right people on the bus and get them in the right seats. So you could have a perfect person, but if they're in the wrong job, it's going to be a disaster. And when I say the right people, it's not about technical skills. It's about culturally fitting in. Do they believe in the vision of the company and the mission of the company? So for example, in our industry, it's typically hunt it, kill it, eat it, commission-based, they're your clients. It's not a team-based business. So in our office, it's a true team. Nobody has their own clients. Their clients are Carver Financial Services. And so you have to get people that believe in that. The other thing is our industry is typically focused on investments and numbers, and we don't do that. We're into people's visions. So again, it's a different mindset. The other thing is, and this is the point we had talked about before, I think it's important to get people that don't agree with everything you say or do. And it's the hardest thing. I've had some people that just have driven me crazy, but I think it makes us better as opposed to people that all say yes. So you want some people that are going to kind of push back a little bit. And there's a really good book called Rocket Fuel that talks about this, the implementer and kind of the entrepreneur.
Right.
The entrepreneur's got 50 ideas, but somebody's got to kind of rein them in a little bit and get them executed. And so I think, it's important to have that, like Warren Buffett, Charlie Munger kind of thing. And
that really ties back into that ego discussion. And Rocket Fuel does a great job talking about checking your ego, because you really have to empower your integrator to keep you as the visionary in check, right? Our job as the visionary is to secrete ideas, right? But 19 out of the 20, they're either going to be good but can't be done all at once, or they're going to suck, right? So empowering your number two to be able to say no to you is a big deal. And that goes back to the ego. Do you have that kind of relationship with your number two?
I have it with probably all of our leadership team, quite frankly, and it's exhausting sometimes, but it definitely makes us better over time. Pushing on both sides.
How do you? I want to dissect that for a minute, because this literally just happened just the other day. Our EOS L10 meetings, we keep to them faithfully. It keeps everybody in their lanes and totally focused on the same goals. So we love it. But I got to tell you something, right? So I'm in the visionary seat in my company, or in our companies, and I like to think that I've got a really thick skin, and that we wouldn't have gotten to where we are if I wasn't able to just, say, okay, I'm wrong, you're right. But it still stings. I got to tell you, literally just the other day in one of these meetings, we went around the room and every single member of our leadership team told me I was pushing too hard on this one issue, and it was hard for me to deal with. I had to do a like a personal inventory, like an emotional inventory of do I want to die on this hill? Do you have any issue with that, or has it evolved? Or talk about your experience with being told by
It's some of both.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it depends on what the subject is. In the case of certain things operationally or administratively, I'm going to defer to them because they're better at it.
Yeah.
And in case of marketing, branding, I'm going to push it and die on that hill because
Interesting.
I know. So it depends on the thing.
Yeah.
Another good book, it's called Building a Culture of Freedom and Responsibility by Patty McCord. And really, it's really good book talking about how do you do that?
Yeah.
Not lose control.
You're
you're still the shot caller. Ultimately it's you. They do work for you. So there's a line between pushing and just total anarchy.
Right.
Which you can't have either.
Yeah. I guess Netflix is notorious for having this radical candor.
Well, she's the one that created it.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, that was Patty McCord.
Interesting.
She was brought in to build that.
Wow.
So it's really the story of what she did.
Yeah. They have such open and honest and frank conversations without any fear whatsoever, that they've done away with most rules that companies have.
Yeah.
That's it's fascinating. We're definitely not there, but it's a journey, right? I mean,
it's tough.
Yeah.
And I trust him. I'll give you an example. I was in a meeting last week. They're talking about paid time off.
Yep.
And a number of the guys said, we give people whatever they want. And then we watch and see what they do. Right. And what happens is if says, we're not going to keep track. You're an adult, deal with it. Now, if you have 3 employees, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
If you have 6, the deal is you got to say, well, you all have to agree. You figure it out because we got to be open. You guys figure it out, which is kind of cool. Yeah. But what they find is they actually use less time than when they're said, I get 6 weeks a year, 4 weeks a year, whatever it is.
Right. There's all these famous stories about how Steve Jobs would walk into a meeting and people would tell him, it can't be done.
Yeah.
And he would say, all right, I'm taking it back from you. I'll get it done.
Right.
Or if you can't do it, you do it. Right. And through that kind of force of will, we have the iPod, the iPad and the iPhone and all these technologies. It's a delicate balance, right?
It is, but that's an exhausting way to do stuff.
Right.
But certainly the brute force thing, works.
So phase 3, servant leadership, right? Empowering your people to be leaders. Obviously that involves a high degree of trust and an understanding that there's going to be failure there, right? Without micromanaging.
Well, that's the key. But if you think about it, I mean, there are most tasks that the owner can do better. So if I delegate this, I know I can do 100%, maybe he can do 70.
Yeah.
But if I've got 3 people like that, each doing 70,
Right.
it's freeing up a bunch of time. And after a while, guess what? They'll be better at it than I am once they get to it.
Yeah.
But it's a tough thing. You have to trust them. But again, it comes back, you got to have the right people and you got them in the right seats. So I may have people that are great at figuring out stuff administratively, but could not manage people at all.
Yeah.
So you don't want that person as your HR person. You need to figure out, and I know some people use disc tests and Wonderlic and all kinds of stuff to build teams. Yeah. And we've done that, quite frankly. But I think, you'll figure it out.
Right.
Whether it's working or not.
Yeah, there's this great quote. J.J. Abrams, the movie director, right?
Yeah.
So he just did a podcast, and he said that when he picks people to be his producer in a movie or his head of talent or whatever, he picks people who, when they talk, he wants to think of them as his boss, even though he is their boss. Right. He's hiring people and paying them these great salaries, and he's hiring them for their expertise and for their personality. And because when they talk, he wants to sit down and listen as though he reports to them. And I thought that was such an interesting dynamic, right? Surrounding yourself with people, maybe not on day one, they're going to be at that level, but you are hiring them to be able to step back from your business even farther, so that they can run it with complete trust and faith. Getting there though, right? That's the journey. That's the chiropractic, the cracking of the business and the owner. Have you had time? I'm sure you've had times when you've had to like step back in, right?
Oh, of course.
And,
sure.
Can you think
but
of one?
It's really not as often as you think, quite frankly.
Yeah.
It's not, in our case, it's not so much been a matter of the thing's completely off the rails.
Yeah.
It's just not happening as fast as I'd like it to.
Right.
I usually jump in and push a little bit.
Yeah, it never is, right?
Right.
That's why you're the visionary.
Exactly.
Yeah. Can you think of a time when I always like to learn from other people's failures, people that I admire, and defining failure as a good thing, right? Not a bad thing. But like, can you think of a time when your journey from phase 1 to phase 2 to phase 3 actually forced you to take a few steps back because you were going too fast or not?
Not really, but I mean, certainly we made some bad hires.
Yeah.
We learned really how to hire people better. And also there's some things that we can hire better than do ourselves. So for example, now we use a recruiter to do all our screening and so forth. We used to put out ads, and myself and the leadership team would interview people, and you know what? That's not our thing. So now we have someone, they screen, they do all that stuff, and then they give us 2 or 3 candidates to do the final. So that's an example of something. Maybe that is a failure because we made some bad hires. So we got to change how we're doing this.
Yeah. Well, that's that who, not how concept, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Let the who's run with it. So I wouldn't consider that a failure at all. But it's a success in that you recognize that and you were self-aware and you put the work where it needed to go.
Mm-hmm.
Randy, I appreciate you giving me some time. This was great.
Awesome.
You're at carverfinancialservices.com. You're on LinkedIn. You and I are both not on Twitter.
We're on Facebook.
Are you on Facebook? I've stopped all social media except for LinkedIn because I couldn't. It was sucking too much of my time.
I'm on Insta. I'm all over the place.
You're on the gram?
I'm on the gram.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, folks know where to reach you, and I hope they do. You definitely have the chops and the experience, and you are what CEO Confidential is all about. So thank you for sharing everything you've shared with me. I appreciate it.
Appreciate the opportunity.
All right, folks, we'll see you next time. Thanks for listening to CEO Confidential. I hope you enjoyed it. Visit us at ceoconfidential.net and visit our sponsors, the business law firm of Gertzberg Licata and Cover My Six, a business solution that flushes out and repairs legal minefields before they blow up in court. We'll see you next time right here for another episode of CEO Confidential.